I'm working with another fella in another state on an interesting problem with a Manitowoc 2250 crane. I'll show you a picture of that in a little bit here. And it has a QSX 15, 550 horse. It has an ECM on it. It's a CM870 ECM on this particular machine. It's got an IFSM on it. So the problem is the machine will be running, it'll just randomly shut down. It'll start up okay. Once they get it restarted, it might run for a few hours and it'll randomly shut down. So our guys already made a couple changes in things on the engine parts-wise, and that hasn't solved it. So today he sent me a data log, and I took a look at that log. It's a short log, but I wanted to go through it with you and show you what I do to help myself think through a problem, even though I do that remotely, at a desk while he's out there in the field. And then if you've got comments on what you think it is, feel free to comment. Once we figure out what's wrong, I'll do a second video so that you all know what the final outcome was. I think this is a great way to learn because, as we say at work, you learn while you burn. You're on fire till you get that baby back up and online, and in the process, you're learning, so you're not going to forget that. So let's take a look and see what we've got here. The machine we're talking about, it's a Manitowoc 2250. It's a pretty big machine. Again, it has that QSX. This one has a QSX 550 horse engine in it. So let's take a look at the data log now. Here I've taken a section of the data logger and I've graphed it. That helps me to see kind of what happens when. On the left, the numerals going up are RPM. This engine idles at 1,000 RPM. It runs pumps and other things, so it's not down at like 600-700 like a truck. So normal idle is 1,000 RPM, and we're idling fine, and then all of a sudden the idle just falls down until the engine stalls. And on the bottom, that brown line is our fuel pressure, and as you can see, the fuel pressure is right around 250. Normal for this engine's around 245 to 275, and when it gets to 106, it just gives up the ghost and it's done. So the reason this engine was stalling was we were losing fuel pressure. Now we have to figure out why we're losing fuel pressure. So let's take a look at the rest of the data log. When you're trying to figure out what's causing something, you have to be able to see everything that the ECM is seeing, if it's what's causing the problem or part of the problem. And in this case, I don't know that the ECM is part of the problem, but this is what it saw. So let's look at cut number 1. That's engine speed. Up at the top, it's 0 because the key's on. They're going to start the engine. They start cranking it. And you see 207 RPM, and then it takes off. And we're at 930, 990, and then 1,000, it's idling. And then right away, it starts slowing back down. By the way, this entire log that you're seeing here is probably about 6 seconds. We look at column number 2, and that's our fuel pressure. So the fuel pressure came up good. We're at 237, and then all of a sudden it's 229, 226, bang, 106. And the fuel pressure goes right back down. The next thing you want to know is, did the machine shut, or the engine, or the ECM shut the fuel off for some reason? So let's look at the fuel shutoff valve number 3. If that says close, the ECM deliberately tried to shut the fuel off. As you can see, it's open all the way down. So the ECM was not trying to shut the fuel off. Let's go all the way to the right to number 7. That's stop lamp status. If the ECM detected some kind of a critical problem like no oil pressure, extremely hot water temperature, and a few other values, it could decide it's going to shut the engine off or tell the operator to shut it off. In which case, the stop lamp status up at the number 7 would be reading on instead of off. So that was good. Let's go to column number 4, key offs. if we had a problem with our key switch, we were getting intermittent power to the ECM, and then the power would go away. Say the machine's running and the wires are vibrating a little bit. You got a broken wire. You might see key offs jumping up. So if we started at 116. If down at the bottom we were at 122, I would know that either the ECM or the harness that feeds it or the literal key switch has got a problem and it's pulsing the ECM on and off. But that looks good. Number 5, percent of fuel. Percent of fuel is the ECM's throttle pedal, if you will. It's how much fuel the ECM's giving the engine. So at 64% when the engine first starts, it basically gives it a lot of throttle so it can get that big mass of metal moving. Then it cuts back and it's idling at about 13 or 14%, and that's about right. And then notice as the engine starts to stall, it jacks the fuel back up to 88%. It's giving it everything it can to keep it running, but then you notice the numbers go to 0 because the ECM has changed from run state back to engine stop because it can't maintain RPM, and it doesn't really know why. So now we have to figure that out. So this is a typical data log opened up in Microsoft Excel, and we'll learn more about those as time goes on. Thanks for joining me at Neural Splendor. And if you can figure out what's going on or have some ideas, post them below. Go back to the IFSM video that I did identifying all the parts. That's a good place to start because that is the fuel system. And it looks like at this point we have a fuel system problem. Catch you next time.